Hello everyone, and welcome to the RV Inspection and Care channel. I'm Dwayne and I'm a certified level 2 RV inspector. And today we're going to be talking about what happens when your RV internet connectivity equipment just is not enough to get the job done. You know, that's a really big problem for a lot of us because we rely on that internet connection a lot. I mean, a lot of us do. If you stop and think about how much you access the internet through the day in your RV travels, you can agree that yes, we need good connectivity. Now, I've made two videos really about how I managed to get great connectivity really all across the country. In the first video, this one here, I go over the equipment that I use. And all of that equipment is still in use and it's doing a great job. I've been able to get internet connectivity in places where nobody else around me was able to do that. So it's a great video to watch. Now, in the second video, this one here, I went into a discussion of what to look for to make sure you get a really good hotspot. A hotspot that has the latest technology and will really make sure you get a good connection as much as possible. So be sure that you view those videos. But I'm going to tell you a little secret now that a lot of people that are full-timers, I don't hear them talking about. And that is this. Here's the truth. If you're traveling around as you RV around the country, you're going to run into areas where you will not be able to get good internet service, even though you have the best equipment possible to connect to a cell tower or cell service. And that may sound very strange, or very funny, but there are areas where you go into where all of a sudden a lot of people just crowd into that area. And when they do, they crowd into the area and overwhelm the cell towers in that area. So what happens to the internet then? Well, you can have the greatest connection to the tower that you want to have, but if the tower cannot handle all the traffic that's on it, well then your connection is almost useless. In fact, that just happened to us. We were in the Pocono Mountains in the summertime, and people just flocked into that area from New York and New Jersey and all over really. But there were so many people in the Poconos this year that the towers could not keep up. They were overwhelmed, and we were fighting for an internet connection for days. And sometimes it was passable, but many times it was not. So that's not just unique in the Poconos. This can happen in a lot of places across the country where there's high traffic areas in certain times of year and you happen to be there during that time. Now the question is, how then do you stay connected? How do you get a good connection when that's happening to you? Because you've got all this great equipment, you invested in it, it really works well most of the time, but now all of a sudden it's not working for you. Well, the fallback position would probably be number one, the campground Wi-Fi. But that's probably going to be an issue, most likely, and here's the reason why. Number one, campground Wi-Fi is not good in most cases anyway. But number two, if that area has been overwhelmed with people coming into it, probably the campground is kind of overwhelmed as well. And so as a result, the same thing happens to the campground Wi-Fi that has happened to the cell towers. They just cannot keep up with the traffic that's on them. So what was marginal before having all these people come in is now really poor. So campground Wi-Fi would be the next thing, but don't expect a lot. Where do you go from there? Well, you know, RVers sometimes forget that there's free Wi-Fi available almost everywhere in the country in towns that you may be near to. There's a lot of businesses that like to provide free free Wi-Fi for their customers. So here's a nice list of those. Let's go down the list. Number one is Starbucks, and of course a lot of people know this. But you know, you don't have to go in there and spend the big bucks for the most expensive coffees. You can just go in and get a regular coffee, and it won't cost you much, and you can still enjoy Wi-Fi to get what you need done. Second is McDonald's. You know, it's an interesting thing that McDonald's is highly rated for their Wi-Fi system in many cases. They have some pretty good speeds. Next is Panera Bread. That's a good location as well. And Staples and Office Max. Those are both stores that will allow their customers to have free Wi-Fi. Along that line, other stores could be Best Buy, it can be Target, and so on. So these, now when you go into these stores, you don't want to go in and just be spending tons of time on the internet, but they will allow you to make a connection, a good connection, and then take care of some things that need to be taken care of in a reasonable period of time. Also, gym memberships. Very often, if you have a membership in a gym that's nationally syndicated, then you can go to that gym, and they often will provide Wi-Fi too. And there's other resources as well. So just try to think of these places where businesses are offering free Wi-Fi, and yeah, it may take a little drive to get in and access the internet there, but at least you can get some things done that have to be done. Now, the other thing that we sometimes can forget about is that there's other places for free Wi-Fi, like local libraries. That's a great source of free Wi-Fi. Also, many public parks allow free Wi-Fi as well. So keep these places in mind, and don't get completely discouraged when all this wonderful equipment that you have for internet connectivity seems to be failing and not doing its job. Well, there's a reason for it, and we just have to work around it temporarily. And these places we just mentioned allow you to do that. But now, there is a caution in using these free Wi-Fi connections, and that is that there are those that could steal your data if you aren't careful. So how do you protect against that? Number one, don't send sensitive information over that network. Don't do your online banking on that network. Don't send sensitive credit card information and things like that. That you want to have a really secure connection, and free Wi-Fi is probably not the place to do that. The second thing is, when you're surfing the internet, make sure that as much as possible you stick to secure sites. And how do you know? Well, if you look up in the URL bar of the browser, look for HTTPS on the end. That S means that you will have a secure connection, and that is another good way to protect yourself. Finally, when you connect up to a free Wi-Fi source, your device is going to ask you to go ahead and connect up automatically when you're in that area. Don't do that. You want to know when you're on free Wi-Fi and when you're not. So make sure it's a manual connection. You have to log in each time to be able to connect up, and that way you'll make things a little bit more secure as well. Now, what happens though if you like to stream entertainment? Your equipment is not doing the job, but you love to stream movies and that kind of thing. Well, the sad news is this: you're probably up the creek without a paddle on that, because streaming is one of the most intensive things that you can do as an internet connection. So what do you do instead? Well, for Sherry and I, that's why we have a nice collection of DVDs that we take with us, and so we pull out some of our favorites and we enjoy those. Also, games are a great thing to do. You know, sometimes that's actually the more fun thing to do. Just spend time with each other and play some games together. So give that a shot as well. Finally, the last point is that if things are just not working out at all and it's just getting on your last nerve, your RV has wheels on it for a reason. Those wheels can take you somewhere else, and most likely that somewhere else will have a good internet connection that's not overwhelmed. Again, you're not going to see these problems everywhere. You're just going to face it every now and then. So sometimes the best thing to do is just move and solve the problem. Well, I hope this information I just shared with you was helpful. Have safe and happy travels, my friends. Until next time.